I call the honourable member Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Labor supports the Land Transport Amendment Bill, and we do look forward to the consideration of it at Select Committee. We anticipate that there will be significant public interest in this legislation, not just from people who are interested specifically in road safety, but also from people who have an interest in public health and the impact of alcohol and other substances on the health and well-being of New Zealanders. And in fact, there was some discussion at the Health Select Committee about whether we ought to ask for this bill to be considered at the Health Select Committee. That was a suggestion made by Kevin Haig because of the wider health implications of this legislation. And I'm sure that will be a significant aspect of the conversation that will be had at the Select Committee. Sir, we support this legislation because alcohol is one of the leading contributors to death on our roads, if not the leading contributor to death on our roads. So far this year, sir, 231 people have died on New Zealand roads. And if the statistics that have been gathered in recent years are borne out when close examination of those numbers is made, bears out again this year, then around 80 of those people will have been killed where the accident is attributable to alcohol and or other intoxicating substances. And over the years, sir, although we have been successful in reducing the overall road toll with one unfortunate blip last year, but generally the trend is heading downwards, what we have not been able to do is reduce the impact of alcohol and substance use on the road toll. It sits, in fact, back in 2008, 33.1% of all road deaths were attributable to alcohol and drugs. Last year, in 2012, 33.8% were attributable to alcohol and drugs. And in the intervening years, it's gone up, it's gone down, but it's generally sat around that mid-30s, slightly above a third of all accidents caused by alcohol and drugs. And it's for that reason, I think, that the police came to Parliament and said that the single most impactful thing that Parliament could do to reduce the road toll would be to reduce the drink-drive limit. And it's been clear for a number of years, sir, that is the course of action that Parliament needed to take. However, unfortunately, the government has sat on this one for far too long. It was back in 2009 that Stephen Joyce, actually, as the Transport Minister at the time, actually looked like he was about to act. It looked like Cabinet was very, very close to introducing legislation that would do exactly what this legislation does. But for some reason, Stephen Joyce and the National Party Cabinet decided not to act. It may have been something to do with polling, it may have been something to do with the fact that they wanted to push the issue past the last election. We can't really be sure what it was that caused them to fail to act, but what we do know is this: it certainly wasn't public opinion. The public opinion has been behind this measure for a number of years now, and it certainly wasn't the evidence, because the evidence gathered overseas, where other jurisdictions are years ahead of New Zealand, is that lowering the drink-drive limit has a tangible and fast impact on the road toll. So public opinion supported it, the data supported it, yet for some reason the National Party did not support it. And frankly, sir, we can only speculate about why that is. Now, this legislation does something a little bit different than what the Labor Party has been proposing for a number of years. Back in 2009, when Stephen Joyce failed to act, our then Transport spokesperson Darren Hughes introduced a members' bill to the ballot that would have taken the action that the government failed to do. and that member's bill eventually was passed to me in my role as Transport spokesperson and Associate Health spokesperson, and I was lucky enough to have it drawn from the ballot. I also attempted to have the Alcohol Reform Bill amended as another mechanism to make this change. The government voted against that at the time, but once the private member's bill drafted by the Labour Party was pulled from the ballot, then all of a sudden it became a priority. And the reason for that, of course, is that it had parliamentary support. So the public were behind it, the data supported it, and then Parliament was going to act with or without the National Party, with or without the government. And so, it's nice to be able to have an influence over the government from the opposition benches, and I'm pleased to say that knowing that Parliament was going to act with or without them inspired the National Party, after 4 long years of considering this topic, to finally do the right thing. But this is different than what the Labour Party originally suggested. It introduces fines and demerit points for being over 0.05 but under 0.08. So we will support that notion to select committee, and we want to hear what the evidence tells us. We know that jurisdictions overseas have taken both approaches, either by simply reducing the limit and making it a criminal offence to be over 0.05, or by having this series of fines and demerit points as a way of deterring people from becoming intoxicated and then getting behind the wheel. We want to see what the evidence says around that. But, sir, I want people to understand that driving over 0.05 is not a minor thing. It should not be a minor offence, regardless of whether it ends up being an infringement offence or a criminal offence, because driving at 0.05 or more increases the risk of being involved in a fatal accident by 5.8 times over someone who is driving at 0 with no alcohol. 5.8 times greater risk if you're driving at 0.05. If you're driving at 0.08, then there's a 16.5 times increased risk of being involved in a fatal accident. And what's more, it doesn't just increase your likelihood of being involved in an accident, but it increases the severity of the accident as well. 12% of minor injury crashes are attributable to alcohol. 21% of serious injury crashes are attributable to alcohol, and as I said before, 34% of accidents where somebody is killed are attributable to alcohol. So alcohol not only increases the likelihood that an accident will occur, but it increases the likelihood that that accident will be more severe and will result in serious injury or death. This is not a minor topic, and it should not have been an issue on which the government preferred to put some sort of political expediency ahead of doing the right thing back in 2009 when they had the data. Sir, New Zealand has been slow to act on this issue. Just 16 countries, including New Zealand, still have a 0.08 limit. The vast majority, 39 countries, have a 0.05. A significant number of countries actually have a lower limit than that again. New Zealand is out of step, and we are behind, and it is a tragedy that we have taken 4 years more than we needed to pass this legislation. 336 people died on our roads in 2008. 121 of those were attributable to alcohol. 140 in 2009, 144 in 2010, 87 in 2011, and 104 in 2012, attributable to alcohol. Those numbers could have been reduced if the government had been prepared to act, and that is the great tragedy. But, sir, we do support these moves. We do want to have the debate about the differences of opinion between the two different approaches that the government and opposition were proposing. We look forward to the passage of this bill through the House, and we look forward to this change being made by the middle of next year at the latest, because, sir, this is something that New Zealand desperately needs.
I call the honourable member.